This is Dune Talk, a DuneNewsNet.com production. Join us now for the latest Dune news, reactions, and lively discussions.
And we're back. The full crew is here with a brand new episode of Dune Talk. If you're tuning in for the very first time, know that this is the official show of DuneNewsNet.com. Here you'll find news, reviews, and interviews on everything Dune. And if you've been with us before, welcome back. Simon, have we any news this past week?
Well, Marcus, funny that you should ask. There's a little bit of news, not much. We got a poster, we got some beautiful Vanity Fair photo, and we got this little 2.5-minute video called a trailer. It wasn't even called a teaser trailer. I don't know. I think we have news to talk about. It's been a while. I mean,
wait, did I miss something?
No, just those. Nothing special, you know.
No. So for real now, super excited to talk about the Dune Part 2 official trailer that was released on May 3rd. This is Marcus Gabriel, your editor at DuneNewsNet.com.
Hey, this is Garin. So good to be with all of you and be with the boys today to talk about this official trailer and all the other good stuff that's coming out. I'm so excited. I just wish it was November, so I'll have to be patient.
Yes, thanks everyone again for joining. Great to have everyone back. It is very eventful, as we have already alluded to. Really excited to dig in and hear some thoughts, share some thoughts, and as Garin said, just November, got to live in the moment, but would love Dune to come out right about now. So yeah, really excited to get started.
Only 6 months away, boys. It's like half of a year. We can do this. We've never been so close. You know, my grandpa used to tell me all the time back in January, like, I would be at Grandpa once Christmas. You've never been so close. So this one's for you, Grandpa. But so much news. Marcus, take it away.
Dune Movie News.
Okay, so before getting into all of our reactions on the trailer, as Simon mentioned, we've had some other great visuals this past week or so. So quick recap. Previous week, Vanity Fair released their first look at Dune Part 2. So this included 12 new stills. We got some fresh looks from the returning cast. So we saw Paul, now with the blue eyes of a dad, and Rebecca Ferguson looking mystical with those facial tattoos, which, as Villeneuve teased, are connected to the prophecy. We also got that reveal of Princess Irulan, played by Florence Pugh, Lady Margot Fenring, played by Léa Seydoux, and Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen, played by Austin Butler. And of course, as mentioned, that interview with Denis Villeneuve, Timothée Chalamet, and Zendaya got some good insights out of that in terms of the direction of the movie, what the tone is going to be, what its main themes are. Then past Tuesday, before the movie's trailer was released, we got the official poster. So I mean that's a stunning piece of art. I think we won't talk in detail about that now, but I know like a lot of people have reacted very positively to that poster. We see Paul and Chani, and we see the movie's tagline, "Long live the fighters." So I feel that really captures the feeling of Dune. Then on that same day, we got a teaser for the trailer, and there we saw, of course, Paul setting the thumper in the dunes, and then we saw all the main characters' faces similar to that tease that we got before Dune Part 1's first trailer. So as usual, you can find complete coverage of these and all the other news stories on DuneNewsNet.com. But with that said, let's go ahead and dive into the official trailer. Starting with overall impressions and what was going through your mind when watching this on Wednesday. Garin, how about you go first?
Yeah, so the overall feeling that I had watching the trailer for the very first time was, and I'm really pleased about this, is it truly feels like it's the second half of the story. I didn't feel anything that was too far off from what I experienced in Part 1. It literally felt as if the story is just taking off from the very end of Part 1. And that's really important to me because this is one story. It's two films, but it's one story. And I'm really pleased that Denis is making sure that is clear to us. He had that from the outset. But overall, it felt like the Arrakis that I know from Part 1. The characters felt authentic and real from Part 1. So that's my overall impression, is that it is an extension, a direct extension from part one, and I was really happy about that.
I would say my initial feelings or thoughts watching it was that, and this was a very pleasant feeling as well, was I was surprised by some of the things I was seeing. And without going into too much detail, I would say the main surprise stemmed from certain stylistic choices and decisions that I wouldn't have anticipated and was very pleased to see. And one thing in particular, I'll say, it just seems like Villeneuve is not holding anything back with this. I feel like he and Greg Fraser in particular, and just the whole cast and crew, are just going absolutely all in. They know that they laid the groundwork with part one. They know that they've got an audience now and that they have even more star power, arguably, this time around. The marketing's off to a great start. So I think that they were really going to just go all in. And I think this could be a lot weirder than the first one, a lot more action-packed as the trailer shows off. I just think that this is everything that I think some maybe fans, especially book fans or fans of the Lynch film, felt like was missing from part one. I think they're going to get some of the things that they were looking for with part two, just based off this trailer.
I was pleasantly surprised the day before the trailer officially hit. I knew about that little teaser, but then I saw, Paul with the Thumper. I'm like, I don't want to see this. I want to wait until tomorrow to see the official trailer. And I was blown away. I mean, I had a couple alarms set on my phone to wake me up 3-4 hours before, because I was like, I don't want to miss it. I don't want to just randomly go on social media and see it. I want to be there on YouTube. I agree with Garin. It felt like the Arrakis that we know from part one. It felt like Marcus has been saying, welcome back to Arrakis, and it is. And there's a couple of visuals where I was like, Denis or Joe Walker, whoever came up with those ideas, I was like, interesting choices. But overall, super happy.
This is epic. I mean, we get to see Paul riding the worm, basically, and we get to see that, especially those scenes at the end with Paul standing above, and like those whole horde of Fremen warriors, and then you see the final conflict with Paul and Feyd. I mean, there's like a lot of epic stuff going on in the trailer. At the same time, it didn't show too much, if you think about it, because most of the trailer was the scene where Paul is either preparing to, or like getting onto the sandworm and getting guidance, and people talking to him, people cheering, and then that's intercut with all these like quick different scenes from all over the movie. But if you think about it, we didn't see like a huge amount of different scenes. So I think that's good in a way, because there's a lot more that's going to happen in this movie. Like, I'm assuming that the whole movie is going to be, say, the same length as Dune Part 1 or even longer. There's just so much that can happen in here, and we'll get into that as we dig further into the trailer.
Yeah, what I thought was interesting when you're talking about it, it shows a lot, but it doesn't. Like you said, the whole sandworm part, I think, is a good 30 seconds out of 230. And you got to think there's like at least 5 seconds in the beginning and maybe 10 at the end for the credits. So it's mostly the Paul riding the sandworm. And imagine what we saw, and that was only 30 seconds. That scene's going to be a good at least 2-3 minutes longer than, it's going to be kind of like the ornithopter scene in the first film. I was blown away. And what I think is interesting, there's still several main characters that we haven't even seen yet.
Obviously, this was done by, edited by a professional trailer editor, because what we're doing is we're establishing this relationship between Chani and Paul, which, again, that's how the first part ends. And now it is progressed. We now see them together. We can tell they're in a relationship. And that opening shot is just this almost very serene. They're just contemplating, looking out over the dunes, and then having that short conversation. But then we get all these flashes of these characters that we know and love from part one. So I'm already in a familiar place, but then interspersed with that are some of these new characters. And I just thought it was masterfully put together, in my opinion. just from a fan standpoint.
I love the Planchani opening scene when he's talking about water and how you just dive in. It just shows the innocence of where they're at also in their relationship. And it's just a sweet moment before, well, yeah, before stuff gets real. And it's just them falling in love with each other, getting to know each other. You know, I did want her to say Uso in the trailer, but we're saving that for later.
Yeah, and what I liked about that scene with Paul and Chani sitting in on the dunes at the beginning is, like, even though they're sitting on like a desert world that's at like the center of the universe with you know, like wars going on for the spice, and they're going to have to be fighting for their lives, fighting for revenge, trying to liberate the planet. Like, it feels, at least that scene feels really down to earth. Like, it feels like, you know, like I think so many people can relate to that moment, and the way that they're talking about, and you know, like the affection and like the playful tone in the voice. I mean, just comparing to the previous adaptations where it was more, you know, really was out of this world. I felt, now looking at Dune Part 2 and the way that Denis has approached this relationship, it does feel really realistic, and I think that's been a theme that we've been seeing ongoing throughout this movie. John, you were mentioning like about the stylistic choices. Was there anything that really surprised you?
Definitely. I mean, the two things in particular that are the most jarring, for good reason, would be the black and white photography that was for what we could tell is the gladiator scene, for those that have read the book, which on its own, I was really excited to see them include that in the trailer. But just the stark contrast. And I just came from a screening of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which
Nice.
was amazing. Everyone go see it. But I saw it in the Chinese theater, probably the biggest IMAX, probably the biggest movie screen in the entire city. And amazing projection, amazing quality. When they played that Dune trailer, first off,
Lucky. Sorry.
it is unbelievable, the fidelity of the image and the contrast and the color vibrance. But that shot particularly of when it goes to like pitch black and then it starts opening up to the arena, oh my goodness, it's chill inducing. And I'm so glad they did 100% IMAX with this movie, because it shows. I've just seen the trailer once in the theater, and I already can't wait to see more. But the black and white was just very surprising. I love it. I think it looks very cool. And it's, I think it's kind of a funny coincidence, because there's never been any IMAX in film, like Hollywood productions, IMAX that uses black and white. But then Christopher Nolan developed black and white IMAX film stock for Oppenheimer, which comes out in a couple of months. And then now on the digital side, we have Villeneuve doing some black and white with Greg Fraser on Dune Part 2 also a couple months later. So that's pretty neat. But we can talk a little bit more, speculate about that probably. But then the other very, again, stark contrast, the 84-esque bright orange, like blood orange scenery, and just a few shots that are in the trailer, two different kind of looking sequences, but that was surprising as well. There is also some more interesting use of color throughout the trailer. I'm a sucker for that. And I know some people were complaining a little bit that, you know, the first one was a little too, you know, dark, or that it didn't have much vibrancy to it. And I feel like this trailer, there's a lot more interesting pops of color, from the makeup to the costume design, to the couple sequences that I was just talking about. So that was really, really neat. And just, again, on a base level, watching it for the first time, those images flying by, those ones really stood out to me, and definitely have me curious about, again, I have my own theories, but just curious to see in context what those are, and kind of the motivation behind that.
Also, let's not forget that the first one takes place a lot at nighttime. So that's why it was darker. When people are like, oh, it's such a dark movie, I'm like, well, yes, the tone is pretty dark. But they're like, no, it's just a dark movie. But the battle on, you know, Arakeen is during the night. And when Jessica and Paul are out, it's mostly night also. So it makes sense. I've heard mixed things about the black and white with the arena. I love it. threw me off guard. I was like, okay, first of all, he is totally shaved. His head's totally bald. I kind of wanted the mohawk. I'm curious to know what Garin thought of it because that's his boy. But I've also heard that people are saying, well, it's on Giddy Prime. There's no color. That's why it's so faded and so washed out. Or it could be a flashback. Who knows? Garin, what did you think of your precious Feyd-Rautha look?
I didn't know if I would like Austin Butler with that kind of look. I didn't feel like it would be menacing. I worried that it would be so foreign to me that it would be strange. But when I saw it, it just clicked. It was like, that's it. That is the fear-inducing image and the way he screams and just I'm sure physically, obviously Austin Butler is a very physical actor. He's very talented and coordinated. And I think that's going to come through, but in a very frightening, aggressive, deadly way. And so, yeah, I'm gonna actually go against what you guys are saying. I know that stylistically, the black and white may be the whole Giddy Prime thing. I'm sure it looks beautiful, and I haven't seen it on a big screen, but it doesn't. I'm a little concerned about it because it feels jarring. Like it feels like there's this style of Arrakis and the color scheme and the tone, and then suddenly it's black and white. So I don't know, guys. I might have to be won over on that one because that was the one part I really didn't like.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the context of that. I wonder if it's just going to be that specific scene where they're, because Feyd is also holding the white blade and the black blade. One of them is poison, one of them is not. But like with him, you don't really know which one it is. So it might be that they're going for this whole thematic play with that specific scene. But yes, speaking of Austin Butler, it definitely has some range just in this trailer, because like when you see him at one point, like you think, okay, even though like he may be hairless, he does look handsome, suave in a way, like compared to the other Harkonnens. But then when you see him in that arena and when you see him fighting, that like he looks like a beast. Like you're more afraid of him than you would be afraid of Raban. I think it's really impressive.
I've always read Raban kind of like the idiot of the family, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but just like, okay, the Baron's like, all right, nephew, I guess I'll give you this position in my army. And I've always read Feyd as like the chosen one, and in a way, he is the chosen one for the Harkonnens.
There were certain people that with the first movie, they're like, oh, it's a little too tame, some of the designs, costumes, are they going to diverge too much from the books? Like in part 2, I think there were just some people worried about how part 2 was going to approach some of that material. And again, everything I saw, again, some of it did surprise me, like genuinely, but in a great way, because I never had that concern, but I understood it to some degree. But this, I feel like just again in this short initial trailer, we pretty much can put all of that to rest. I would say, like, I think stylistically and from the designs, it just looks like, Jacqueline Walker, who did the costumes, just, it looks like she completely elevated and went to like a whole nother level. I mean, from the stuff you're seeing with the Fremen in the trailer, with Lady Jessica in particular, like you mentioned, some of the Harkonnen stuff, like Austin Butler as Feyd's, his gladiator outfit that we see. We knew what the Baron was like because we saw him in the first movie, and we also saw how they did some of the Fremen and how we saw, the Beast Raban, how he was made up. But with this one, what Donald Mowat and his team have also done, I just feel like with Feyd, I was also a little nervous about Feyd, how that was going to come across. Similar to what Garin was saying was, how do you find that balance of being consistent and having it make sense from within the world of the film, but also from looking at it from the outside? And I could see it going either way. Once I heard he was bald, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to see it to get a feel for it. But in just these few little shots that we got of Austin Butler, man, he is so good. And I knew he was great, from Elvis, which was a film that I quite liked, but I thought he was just in another realm as far as that movie was concerned, with how great he was and how committed he was. And this just looks like I couldn't imagine a greater 180 from playing Elvis Presley, who is, so as with Austin Butler in that role, is so handsome and charismatic and, has like a friendly, aura to him. And now he's playing like this complete psycho. He has no hair. He's just entirely pale white. And he has like black teeth or something. It's kind of hard to tell like what's going on there, but it's so far removed from what I would have expected, knowing, just thinking of Austin Butler in my mind, and just who he is, seems to be like as a person and like how he appears in his daily like life. I think he might steal the movie in some ways, just as such a great opposing position with, against Paul and Chalamet as Paul. I'm really, really excited to see more from that character, probably more than anyone else, I would say, after this trailer.
I agree with Johnny. I mean, what was it, a year ago when he was cast? I was the first one to be like, who? Huh? And then I saw Elvis, and it's hard not to think of him as Elvis, especially like the voice, everything. And it's a big risk when you think about it, because he is becoming kind of like one of those new heartthrobs, and going from, the king of rock and roll to a bad Charlie Brown or, Billy Corgan lookalike. But it's just so like dramatic and so awesome. And like, I love him as a person. Like, I watched interviews with him. His Saturday Night Live was great. Him and Pedro Pascal might have had the best Saturday Night Lives in the past couple of years. But it's just such a jarring image. You take Elvis and then you take Faye, and you're like, how can this guy be the same actor? And I agree with you. I think Feyd-Rautha will be the hit star of this movie. We know what Chalamet can bring. We know what Zendaya can bring. We know what Josh Brolin, everyone else. I think Faye is going to be the star. Pugh is becoming a household name now. She's done a lot of stuff in the past year, and it was great seeing her. And I also just love that she's like dictating her journals in some way. I was like, yes, because I've always wanted Frank Herbert to release those like books in the universe. So seeing that she's doing that, and we got to remember, everyone's kind of like a puppet for Paul, but she's also really intelligent, and she knows her history of the known universe.
Yeah, so we've already mentioned a bunch of great scenes. So let's think about what was the standout, or what was like one scene that really stays in your mind.
I'm going to do this so I can give you guys more interesting choices, because I think this is probably going to be an easy answer. But the worm riding, it's a focal point in the trailer. There's a lot of great images that we've all discussed and touched on so far, but the worm sequence is kind of the centerpiece. And I think we all, maybe more, some more than others, had questions or concerns about how they were going to execute worm riding and just the integration of worms in the Fremen culture and their utility within the Fremen culture in this movie. We've seen the 1984 film. We know how it was depicted there. Not the greatest, most, interesting visual, at least from my point of view. And that was 40 years ago at this point. So technology's come a long way. I was just very curious to see how they were going to bring that to the screen and bring it to the screen in a way that makes sense in the world that Villeneuve has established, because there is a very tactile, realistic feel to his Dune. And so I think the most fantastical part of the whole thing is maybe riding the worms. And how do you do that in a way that isn't just a green screen mess and just feels so removed from reality? And I suspected how they might go about it, but to see it brought to life, I mean, like ripped from the page or my imagination, calling it with a thumper, getting the hooks ready. They're watching from a distance. You can see it approaching. He's running along the top of the dune, and it looks so good. Just the the long shots that they have at a distance, and the scale again is just so immense and well realized. But then the key is again the physical, tactile reality of riding a worm. Like, what does that mean? What does it look like? And I love they have him drop in like through the sand as it's kind of collapsing onto the worm, and he latches on, and it's all brought to life. Like, you can see everything and you can hear what's going on. There's no dissonance between, well, he's supposed to be doing this, or I can't really tell what's going on here, or that doesn't look very, very good. It all felt like it was one cohesive piece. And from him latching on to climbing and then throwing a hook and then kind of getting both in his hands and leaning back. And like there's that triumphant kind of cheering from Chani, and then the look from Stilgar, I think, sells it so perfectly at the end with Javier Bardem. Just like this awe, but it's not like overplayed almost. It just looks so good. And I won't say anything too specific, but there's a couple other things in this trailer involving riding worms in certain shots, where I'm just like, damn, it looks so good. Just the way they've brought it to life with how the Fremen use the worms and the transportation and just things that I don't think the audience that hasn't read the book would expect or really know about. I think it just looks great. And they said at CinemaCon last week, I think it was at this point, Chalamet mentioned riding the worms practically, and people were like, what the hell is that? Like, some people are like, what does that mean exactly? But here you can see, I mean, they must have built sets and segments and portions of the worm for him to climb on and to stand on and to sit on. So I think just the way they've gone about it has been so brilliant, and it looks great. The colors are right. The VFX look really good. Again, I could go on, but and one other thing I'll say to close off is I think I saw some people heard some people say, oh wow, they're showing the worm like riding, like they're showing Paul ride the worm. Like that seems almost like a spoiler. Like, I feel like that's such a big thing to show in the trailer, but I disagree for two reasons. A, you need to show people, like, they saw worm riding at the end of the first movie. You need to show like the natural evolution to that, which is Paul, someone, we know Fremen can do it, but what about Paul? Like, that's the next step. That's a big part of how he gets into the position that he does. So I think that's a great latch to get people with, and just the spectacle and the action of it. You want to show people that part 2 is going to have more of that going forward. But then B, him riding a worm or learning how to ride a worm is so far down the list of amazing, epic, like things you would not expect to see in the second half of the story. That doesn't bother me like whatsoever. So I think if anyone's worried about that, don't be, because there's a lot more where that came from, is the message there, without going into too much detail. So yeah, easy answer, but very, very good. And I thought well executed and integrated into a first trailer. I thought that was a smart choice.
All right, I thought about it, unless Garin wants to go first.
Go for it.
So it might surprise you, but one of my favorite scenes is super quick. It's when you see the painting of Duke Leto just getting burned, kind of like there's no more Atreides. Like, it could also be kind of connected to the scenes that we saw in the first film, but just kind of like they want to make sure that no one knows the name of Atreides anymore on Arrakis. Like, it never happened. And as spoiler for the book, for the non-book people, Paul gets a gift later that's very Hamlet-like, I'll say, about Leto in the books. I love that. And I honestly think the little quick tease at the very end of the final scene with Faye and him dueling, and I think just the Erlong stuff, I was so happy to see her. And there's a whole entire thing like, who is she walking with? Is she walking with Christopher Walken? Because we didn't see him, and I'm sure they're saving that for later. But it's just such, like, so much visuals all at once, and it's like, it tells you a lot, like you were saying about the worm, but the worm is just only a fragment of what's coming. Even at the last scene, when you see him rallying the Fremens, that's only just a little portion. And I like that they're keeping the mystery, because I've seen so many YouTube videos this past day of people going, oh my God, they're spoiling the movie. They're doing all this. No, this is just maybe 10% of what we can expect.
So the part that actually stood out to me the most, and I want to just acknowledge something that Johnny said, the practicality of being able to go from Paul is not native to the Fremen, he's not native to Arrakis, he's a foreigner to this planet, and now he's become part of the Fremen, and now he's actually writing one of these things, like bridging that suspension of disbelief, I thought was really, really important. So I agree, Johnny, that was really critical, that be shown in a way that allows us to fully buy into Paul being who the hero figure he's going to become.
Hero.
Yeah, a different type of hero. But the other part that stood out to me the most, and it's just a split second at 51 seconds in. What's that?
Ornithopters?
Guys, I told myself I was not going to mention the whole flotilla of ornithopters. Okay?
All right, so if no one's ever seen this show before,
but I may have had a bit of a tear when I saw it.
So what I was saying is, if you've never watched our show before or listened, Garin is obsessed with ornithopters.
Yeah, they're the ornithopters are the second most important character of this story, just so you know. But the scene that I wanted to talk about was at 51 seconds in, and we see Lady Jessica, and we see her opening her eyes, we see her taking a breath. There's a little bit of blood on her nose, and because of a scene prior to that, you see something which I know to be the water of life. And what's happening there, which is absolutely critical, and I'm not going to go into all the detail of that tells me, though, that then there is going to be the continuation of the Atreides line with a daughter. And we saw her in part one. We're not going to go into a lot of detail, but I'm glad that those two elements, Paul being believable as part of the Fremen society and being able to ride a worm, and also we're seeing Jessica become a part of the Fremen culture and how she's going to actually become even more integrated into that, and that will happen through the water of life. So seeing that just brief shot, I was like, yes, we're gonna get the key elements that are so important to this story, because had you not been a true fan of the book or the story, you might choose to go, whoa, that's so far out there. I think I'm going to hold off. I think I won't include that. But the fact that Villeneuve is doing that, again, just I couldn't be happier.
It is such a crucial scene, especially, like you said, because it does introduce another character that's a big mystery right now. I've talked to Marcus for hours about it. How are they going to portray that character? And we'll talk about that character, I'm sure, down the line when we get into more spoilers. But that character is also so important. If Denis or Legendary or Warner Brothers wants to do Messiah or Children of Dune, that might be one of my favorite scenes also. But I love the image of Leto's painting just getting burned. Like, this is the end of that bloodline. I went back and rewatched the first two trailers for the original movie, and there's a scene, there's a line that Paul says, they're taking out my family one by one, and that's what's happening, And also I kind of chuckled when she's like, well, your father didn't believe in revenge. I was like, well, Paul does.
To a couple of quick things to piggyback on that, Garin, to your point, and what I was wanting to mention earlier that got me really excited as well is talking about costume design, hair and makeup. All the stuff with Jessica in this looks so good. For a number of reasons. Again, I won't go into like a whole lot of specifics, but just looks how you would want it or how you would expect it to look. And they're not shying away from certain elements. They're leaning into them. And I think it's, again, those are some of the elements that are going to be surprising to some people that aren't familiar with the book, or might shock them or jar them in a good way. Because it's not necessarily something you're going to anticipate or see coming. And I think that all the work they've done with that character in particular looks really, really good and exciting. And also with the other character you were talking about, Simon, you know, there is that shot and that line in the trailer where it says, "In the shadows of Arrakis lie many secrets." That's a line from Irulan. But as she says that, these many shadows or secrets in the shadows of Arrakis, it's the shot that's zooming in on this little transportation of Lady Jessica, and she's secluded and shrouded, and you know, I'm sure she's not traveling alone. She has a lot of Fremen with her, but you know, there may be, you know, other people with her, or you know, nearby.
Think about that.
Yeah, just one of many secrets, you know, things that people don't know about off world. So that's going to be yeah, there's a lot of things going on, and I think that those cool little nods and just some of the design choices and things that they chose to highlight here, like the Water of Life and other things with Jessica in particular, are really, really, again, exciting for me. But they look exciting on their own, but when you know kind of more about what that means and what's going to come, I think that's where it gets really, really good.
Yeah, it's not one specific scene, but like I really stood out to me how they portrayed the Bene Gesserit overall in this trailer, because as mentioned, we have Lady Jessica. She looks really striking with those tattoos. So she's become like a religious leader of the Fremen, like you know, going from the house of Atreides falling, and then you know, them fleeing into the desert, and now she's, you know, one of the most respected people among the tribes there. But then you have the introduction of Princess Irulan, and you see how much power she has. You know, she's there in Kaitain, and she's basically recording history. And we know from the books that she's the one who tells of the accounts of all these events that are going to happen on Arrakis. So like she's the one who's basically yeah, like telling the story of who won, who lost. So there's a lot of power there. But then we also have Lea Seydoux as Lady Margot Fenring, and she's like more on the shadows, but she's also like enacting the Bene Gesserit plan, right? Because you know, of course, the question is like, is Paul alive or is he not? You know, that's uncertain to the other people in the universe at that time. So you see that Lady Margot, she's going for the Bene Gesserit's backup plan. Okay, well, if Paul is not alive, how are we going to continue that bloodline and continue the path to get to reach the Kwisatz Haderach? So it you know, really shows the power of the Bene Gesserit in all these different important posts in the Imperium. That in a way, like I know we're talking about just a movie, but that in a way does make me excited. If like a TV show about the Bene Gesserit done right, that would be really, really cool. Okay, yeah, so definitely a lot going on in just 2 minutes 25 seconds. So we're definitely going to be doing a full trailer breakdown, going scene by scene. But to close off for today, let's talk about like something that you learned that was new, revealed in this trailer. Simon, any thoughts?
Why am I always the first one to go when I'm thinking about something? I think the thing that impressed me the most and that makes me wonder is the black and white on Giddy Prime. What is it? Is it a flashback? Is it not? Is it how the film opens? Is it maybe Lady Margarine like explaining that she went to go see Feyd to the Bene Gesserits? That's my biggest thing I think I learned. And also Austin Butler, hair or no hair, is a good looking dude.
What I learned is that they're gonna actually do this. Like it's all been speculative up to this point, of course, and you know, going off of what we have heard and seen, the very little that we've gotten. But to see the footage is a whole different animal altogether, and you know, I really couldn't be happier with what we got. I can't point to anything. And I mean, what is this? This is the Dune podcast, guys. Okay, obviously we all love Dune. We're marks for this, but if I saw something I was like, I'm not crazy about that, or I'm not so sure what that's going to be like, I would mention it. And I really loved everything about it. Like, there's nothing that is like, I don't know if that's going to be like the right message, or if that visual really is going to work, or these characters. Still a lot we don't know, but I just feel like more confident ever, like knowing that they're going for it big, more epic, like more visually outstanding, especially with the full IMAX aspect ratio and like the visual fidelity of that. The action, the hair and makeup, like we've said, the costumes, Bene Gesserit, Fremen, Harkonnens, it's just all really, really like happening. And we've just been thinking about it, imagining it for so long now. To actually see it on screen is really, really exciting. So I hope it sounds like everyone has liked it for the most part, but hopefully everyone listening feels similarly.
Well, I'm going to just riff a little bit off of your statement, Johnny. I think what I learned, and this was something that, again, I read the book in early 1984. I went and saw it. I thought I saw David Lynch's film in the theaters in December of '84. And even though I was so excited, and like Johnny mentioned, technology was so much different back then, it still was just, it didn't connect the story and the vision in my head to what I was seeing on the screen. And so now, 40 years later, to be able to see Villeneuve's magnus opus, in my opinion, an experience that there isn't this jarring moment. It's like, even watching this trailer, there was never a moment where I was like, ooh, wait, what was that? Or oh, that didn't feel right. Or it's like the whole thing just felt in an alternate universe real. And so I'm just really looking forward to the fact that I can, like Johnny said, I can experience this for 2.5 hours on an IMAX screen, because I learned from this trailer that Villeneuve is honoring that story in a way that only he can bring to the screen. He has a gift, we all know that, and he's using that gift to create a visual of this story that I've had in my head my most of my adult life. And so, not seeing anything that was off topic or out of the realm of reality of this universe. I just want to mention one other thing too. There's a really quick, just half a second shot, and all it is it's some sort of a machine gun firing. And I don't know if it's coming out of an ornithopter or what it is, because it's so but seeing that again is that other element of, this is the second half of that book is war. It's epic war, right? So that is going to be honored, and it's gonna be depicted. And that's what you guys, both Simon and you, Johnny, were referring to, the fact that watching someone ride a sandworm is just learning how to fly the F-16, right? We haven't even seen the dogfights yet, right? So I'm just pleased that the right elements were chosen in this trailer, so that I would know that this vision is going to be done in a way that honors Frank Herbert's story.
I love that F-16 analogy, Garin. It is like, it's like Top Gun Maverick, seeing them doing their training session, being like, they ruined the movie. Like, no, there's all the best stuff is to come. But one thing just that kind of came to my mind as you were describing your own personal journey with it is, and we all know this at this point, but these movies, this new adaptation could have been so bad. Like, these movies could have been terrible, or if they had just tried to do one movie, it could have been terrible. I mean, if anyone other than Villeneuve had been hired to make Dune, it probably would have been one movie. And maybe there would have been some pros or cons to that we're not getting with a 2-part adaptation, but there's a lot of, Lynch obviously did his best, but there was other opportunities over the years for other people to come in and make a Dune movie, and the fact that it all led to this and fell into basically the lap of arguably the greatest science fiction filmmaker of all time at this point, when all is said and done, I mean, couldn't really ask for much more. And again, just to see and knowing the history and everything that we've come to at this point is just, it's really happening. And I just think Dune fans, general audience members, you know, action movie fans, sci-fi fans, epic fans, like I think everyone just really is going to enjoy like this movie. And again, this is just a sliver of really like what the movie is going to be all about and what it's going to have to offer, I think.
I can't wait to see 1 and 2 as one giant movie. You know, people always talk about the Lord of the Rings, how they're one movie. Well, these two are going to be one movie. And honestly, I've said this for how many podcasts have we done? And Denis We Trust. And, you know, Denis and Ridley Scott are the greatest sci-fi directors. And Denis directed a Ridley Scott sequel in a way with Blade Runner 2049. And what I was thinking while you guys were talking was this trailer, as book fans, we loved. Now, I've seen so many people also talk about it as non-Dune fans and just general audience fans. So I feel like it hit the book fans, it hit the sci-fi people, it hit the general audience. So I think overall it's a pretty much win-win situation. And you got to think, this is only the first trailer. What we'll get in maybe 3 months or maybe 4 months when we get closer to the release date, that trailer might even be even more bonkers as more like promotional images come out, as we find out a little bit more about the whole story. And I can't wait until we go deep into the trailer and talk about spoilers, because there's a couple of scenes in there that are just amazing. And Johnny, thank you for making me think about that Lady Jessica scene.
Yeah, because you can tell based on just that shot, the way she looks, the way we know what that is, what's happening there, you know, that's in that part of the movie, you know, most likely. So yeah, that's going to be some good stuff. There is a lot. I know people were like, oh, they showed too much with the worm riding, or I want to see like the Emperor and like some of these other things. I'm glad that they're like pacing that out, holding back. Even Feyd, Austin Butler, as a new addition, doesn't even say a word. You know what I mean? Though, and then we only see him in that one scene, really, which is the gladiator scene. We have that quick shot with him and Margot, Léa Seydoux' character. But outside of that, they didn't go ahead and be like, oh, here's Austin Butler, here's Elvis, like everyone come see him. It's, if you don't know it's Austin Butler, like that he's in this movie, you probably wouldn't pick him out and say, oh, there he is. Which is, again, that's one of the things I love so much about what they've done with him visually. So, I'm very well sated for the time being, I would say. And, you know, they can just go at their own pace, and I feel really good. This was a great, from my own kind of media, like mind perspective, I thought this was a great kickoff to the Dune Part 2 marketing campaign. I mean, CinemaCon reactions with the press, to the Vanity Fair cover story, to the you know, the poster, the teaser video, and then this trailer. I thought that they just hit all the right beats, and they clearly are going all in with this movie, and as they should. I mean, this could be not only a much bigger box office hit than Part 1, but also potentially even bigger awards juggernaut. I mean, based on just what we saw and heard, I could see it winning just as many, if not more, Oscars than it did the first time. So really, I think Matt, you know, I think we all are in agreement that it kind of met or exceeded our expectations one way or another.
So see, Marcus, you didn't miss much this week. It was a quiet week.
Yeah. So final thoughts on what we learned. So for me, one of the things that I've written about, I think already several times on the site, and maybe talked about here as well, is how actually the book material for Dune Part 2 is maybe only about like 25-30% of the end of the book, because actually what Dune Part 1 covered, that's already, you know, like 70% of the book. But that's like last section of the book, there's just so much happening. It's just that you know, Frank Herbert, when he wrote the novel, he didn't go in as much details, but within those events, there's so much to explore. And looking at well, one specific character from the trailer, which is she's not a major character, but she did have her own an announcement, which was Suhaila Yaqub as the Fremen Shish Hockley. So she's going to be playing a supporting character, but we see her a couple of times in the trailer. So one is when Paul is on a sandworm. She's one of the ones who's cheering for him. And we know that in the book, she's the one, or in the book, it's actually a man who is the one who hands the maker hooks to Paul. But then later on, we see an interesting scene, like it's also just for a moment, where she's kneeling on the floor and apparently captured by Harkonnen soldiers, right? And as we've all been alluding to, this is going to be an epic war movie. So it's not just going to be, like riding the worm and then one big confrontation at the end. But in between there's going to be a lot of intense struggles going on. There's going to be some really terrible losses going on. As Zendaya was saying, these are people who are facing immense pressures. So I think those give us a glimpse that there's going to be a lot going on, that we're really going to explore the struggles of the Fremen people and understand the different political factions around the galaxy, what's going on. So yeah, just really looking forward to all that. So as mentioned, we are going to be doing an in-depth trailer breakdown in one of our upcoming episodes. So look forward to that. But for now, let's go ahead and wrap up for this week.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. So it's great. I'm happy that we actually have stuff to talk about because it was that quiet moment. You can find me on all the socials at Stouty. I did a stupid little YouTube video of my reaction of the trailer. If anyone wants to watch that, also, I shot it with my iPhone. I was like practically awake, so it's not the greatest production, but hey, at least you get my first reaction. And I hate quoting Zendaya a million times, but this is just the beginning.
Yes, thank you all again for tuning in. This was a really great episode to come back with, and I'm Johnny Sobchak. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Johnny Sobchak. And I haven't really been speaking too much on the trailer yet because I did want to wait and kind of let it all sink in and have this conversation with everyone. So really great stuff. And I'm looking forward to, as we have a next episode coming around, we'll be talking more in depth, and you can keep up with everything over there.
Hey, it's Garin at Dune Companion on Twitter. I really appreciate everyone joining us today, and I'm just excited to be back talking to the guys here. I love getting into the detail, seeing the different perspectives, and so we appreciate you joining us, and there's more to come.
Yeah, this is Marcus Gabriel, so editor at dunesnet.com. You can find me on Twitter at MarcusIsWriting, and I'm also on Facebook now. And of course, you can find all my writing on dunesnet.com. And yeah, we haven't recorded in a while, but obviously with all the news coming out, you'll see a lot more of Dune Talk in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, looking forward to seeing you all again.
We hope you've enjoyed Dune Talk. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you know when the next episode drops. Stay tuned to DuneNewsNet.com and add us to your social feeds. Be the first to hear breaking news and reviews.